what it's like to live in someone else's socioeconomic differences that they live with. What is it like to live somebody's shoes that is disabled, right? When you look at a guy like Nick Vujicic, who has no arms and no legs, what must that feel like? That it's a special time of year. It's a special time of year because it is the beginning of June, and we have, for most schools across the country, have a couple weeks left. And there's probably some that might just be wrapping up right now. Some might be going to the very end of June, but it's pretty much over. And I always remember my experience as a senior at this point in time because it was so interesting. Every one of our cliques, our social cliques, broke down. And I even saw it happen earlier before then. It started happening even a couple months before, but that last month of school, there was no cliques anymore. There was no social hierarchy, there's no groups, and everybody just was cool with everybody. That was it. Everybody was talking to everybody. Everybody was much nicer to everybody. It was a little bit of the Twilight Zone. It was very strange. And then I thought to myself, is this normal? Well, of course. It's normal for everybody. I've heard it for everybody I talk to about it. And, it always happens. And I think it's part of growing up. I think it's part of development. I also think it's part of the system because from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, 12 years, 13 years of the exact same scenario, right? We start school, we have our holiday break, we have a couple other breaks, summertime, gone to the next grade. Repeat, repeat, repeat. We sit in the rows, we raise our hand, we walk in a line down the hallway. We're quiet when we're told to. We do our work when we're told to. We're being we're being primed, for factory workers. Of course, that's the model of school, whether that be true or not, to this day. So it's been 12, 13 years of the same thing. And then all of a sudden, you hear about all these things that kids are going to be doing differently. One's going to go to that college. The other is going to go to that university. This one's going to major in that. This one's going to minor in that. This one's going to open up their own business. This one's going to work for their dad. And there's just no rule set anymore. There's no roadmap that's given to us. And that kind of makes us realize, we're adults now. Or we're on our way to being adults. So I thought to myself, is there any way, because it was a beautiful time, is there any way we can manufacture or help promote that type of really what is called perspective throughout the other years of a child's school career?
I don't have to tell you, students today are way too stressed, overwhelmed, and anxious about their lives and their futures. This is why I do what I do. As a youth speaker, I teach students to step back from the situation, see the choices they have in front of them, make great decisions, and build positive patterns around this process. Whether it's substance abuse, bullying, or stress about their digital lives, the students I've worked with have had some great success. So I want to work with your students. I want to come down to your school and your event and actually teach your students the art and the science of making great decisions. So click the link below and schedule your call with me so I can learn a little bit more about what you're looking for in your next speaker.
Maybe not necessarily middle school, but high school, can we help promote that? And I think there's a few ways to do that, and I'm going to talk to them about today. So number one is the perspective of time. Now, I've told on this show, I've talked about this many times before, and this is a really awesome little example that Tim Urban did in his TED Talk on procrastination. And he did this little 90-year calendar where he put a box for every week of somebody's supposed, on average, 90-year life. And there's just a little box. And it's really interesting because you could look at it in many different ways. You could say, wow, there's really not that many boxes on that page. Or you could say, wow, I've used up like a good chunk of those boxes. Interesting. But I still have so much to go. I could do so much. I can see so much. I can become so much. So there's many different ways about it, but it kind of puts a finite reality to our lives. And when you're in high school, you think you're invincible. You think you are going to live forever. You're not even thinking about the end. Man, you are just off to the races. You've got your whole life ahead of you. Well, sure you do, but your whole life goes by pretty quick if you don't stop to look around once in a while. Ferris Bueller, baby. Yes, I knew it was coming to me. So I think that calendar is a fantastic visual to help students realize that the petty stuff that they're dealing with right now, these little teeny fights and little teeny arguments and these feelings of FOMO and different things with other social groups that they want or other friends or whatever, you got to ask them, like, do you think all these boxes down here, you think any of that's going to matter? You think anybody's going to even remember you all the way down here or even up here? Like, look at that map and look at that calendar, look at those boxes and say, it's probably not that big of a deal. But again, that's for them to come to that realization. But that's a perspective of time. I think that'll help tremendously. I think we also have to look at the real world perspective. One thing that I was lucky enough to do in my life was work. I worked so many jobs when I was in high school. Quite a bit of different real world jobs. I worked as stupid corporate type of fast food jobs, right? Like where no one really cares because it's McDonald's. I didn't work for McDonald's, but those types of jobs where it doesn't matter, right? But you just feel that grind and you realize, oh, that 72-year-old who works here, what's your life about? Like what happened to you? And you start thinking about this. And then you might also work for the person who just runs their own business, right? You may work for that one person, Todd, who runs, a takeout place, and his family's livelihood is dependent on how well or how poorly you do your part of the job. That's a huge perspective of how real life works. And I think I would highly encourage every student to do two things when it comes to working. Find at least one job, even if they work for maybe 6 months or whatever, just work a job while you're in high school. Yes, you want to focus on school, but at the same time, well, what are you going to do for the rest of your life? You're going to have to work and juggle other things too. So work some type of small part-time job at some point in high school and learn how to make money. Now, that could be very entrepreneurial. You can, flip stuff on Facebook Marketplace. You could, learn how to do drop shipping online. Like you could do a million different things, but make money on your own. I think those two perspectives of real world and the real world that's in front of them will be a tremendous help. And lastly, I think the perspective that needs to be taught of social situations. Now, this is something that you can go into a ton of different ways to do this, but trying to teach students throughout this at some point in their high school career, the realities and sometimes the harsh realities of what it's like to live in somebody else's shoes. What it's like to live in someone else's socioeconomic differences that they live with. What is it like to live somebody's shoes that is disabled, right? When you look at a guy like Nick Vujicic who has no arms and no legs, what must that feel like, right? So if your school isn't necessarily bringing someone in like Nick Vujicic, because I'm sure they don't have that fee, but how can you as a teacher or you as an administrator help facilitate that type of real world perspective? What does it look like to have something and then have it all taken away from you? This perspective of the harsh realities of life is really important. But again, you can do this in so many ways. You can bring in speakers. You can facilitate something in, say, your health classes or school-wide. You can do some type of exercises, whatever it is. I think and you could be creative here, but I think that real world perspective of what it means to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes is extremely valuable and extremely important when it comes to trying to break down these social cliques. And I think it's so helpful. Now, we're dealing with other things in this time of history, we're dealing with things that we haven't had to deal with, if you're somewhat my age, if you're a millennial, elder millennial for that matter. We didn't have to really deal with the intensities of social media. We didn't have to really deal with the intensities of what it's like to be attached to this thing. And those are other avenues to get over when it comes to talking about, say, FOMO, and talking about why, when you're looking at somebody else's social feed, they're only posting the best. It's the highlight reel. They're only posting the best stuff. Getting that through to a student versus just having them hear that is two very different things. Again, this comes down to your creativity as an educator to be able to facilitate that. But I think those are also a couple things to think about in 2024. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I definitely did. I really think it's super important to, first of all, watch these Cliques break down. It's magical, but try our best to facilitate throughout their school career. If you liked today's episode, then let me know by hitting like, hitting subscribe, and hitting the bell notification every time that I release a new video so you can be notified. And if you like today's episode, then you'll probably also like this one right over here.